Hey, good evening. XBT Trading Bitcoin Futures here with our market recap for Tuesday, May the 22nd. Going into the Globex last night, we were directionally biased, neutral in our overnight and short term, and the longer term time frame still being bearish. Our range expansion and our 5-day analysis showed that the regular trading range on average was 245 points, and on the 24-hour session was just a tad under 400 points. So we had going into the Globex, we were between our initial support zone of 84.29 to 84.45, and a support zone slightly below that of 83.85 to 8400. Initial resistance above that at 84.73, 85.10, and then the zones above it. So with that said, let's see how the Globex played out and going into the regular trading session. Okay, let's take a look at the Globex last evening. Once trading started, and again, the Globex is represented by the gray area on the graph on the chart, and the black area obviously is then the regular trading hours in CBOE. So we fluctuated, we tapped our initial support right off the bat with our first two 15-minute candles, and then came down to the support zone of 83.85 to 8400 before marching up back into that initial support zone. Now, if we look at here, folks, our 15-minute candle here that went slightly above, let's see, 84.50, five ticks above our initial support zone here, and that perhaps was the one spot to get in for the day. Probably way too soon to make the short off the first candle of the Globex. If you were so inclined to take the first tap, then you can't go wrong with the first tap of a virgin support or resistance zone. So with that said, probably the more likely scenario would be to pick up this area here and short it at some point in one of these bars, perhaps around 84.40 or somewhere 84.30, with a stop. If it's heading up towards this initial resistance, which 84.73, so we're looking at about 30-40 points. Not a bad stop if you want to try to get a 2-for-1 of 60 to 90 type of a down market move. So that's the possible spot that would have been available to us shorting today. If we took this here in that range, the 84.40 range, we come back down to our initial support zone and go right through that and put in a pretty good hammer here at the 81.70, 8300 mark. Now, that's 130 points from getting in up here. Knowing that our, and again, depending upon your risk-reward ratio and your market risk tolerance, this is a fine spot to take profits. Knowing that excuse me, let's get that there. Knowing that our knowing that our bias is bearish and that our range has only been extended 130 points, we're on a 24-hour basis, we're looking at closer to 300. You could hold this position if you were comfortable going down to the bottom of our support zone, where we tapped out pretty nicely, almost exactly to the zone itself, which would have been a 270-point move, which would be more in line with what we would look at as a possible range extension. So that's one way to play the overnight. Our short here, possible out here, or the possible cover here. One good trade. Coming into the regular trading hours, pretty much chop sideways all day. Would not take a long here. Have to be really something substantial to go against the grain here, and I just don't see it. None of the time frames are suggesting it. So the regular trading hours was nil. The overnight gave us one opportunity, and again, probably a decent day to sleep in. Well, I hope you all caught that short move to some extent, and I will catch up with you shortly for the trade plan for Wednesday.